Hi everyone, and welcome to Learnosity's series of on-demand webinars. Thank you for joining us today for our second long-term support webinar of 2025. For any viewers unfamiliar with our long-term support releases, they're strong, complete, and stable versions of our APIs. 3 times a year, we release these production-ready versions of our APIs, which are then supported for 2 years. My name is Audrey Young, and I'm a Learnosity product manager based in California. Later in the webinar, I'll also be joined by my fellow product manager, Monet Slanowski, and our SVP of product, Michael Sharman. AI is transforming learning. To thrive, learning platforms need to adapt. That's why Learnosity is already shipping your AI roadmap. As the global leader in AI-optimized assessment solutions, Learnosity invests heavily in R&D to stimulate new ways of imagining the assessment experience for product owners, creators, and learners. Our latest major release showcases a batch of AI innovations developed by AI Labs, our trailblazing team of developers and AI specialists that will enable you to swiftly put AI's promise into practice. Let's just briefly run through what's new from our release on the 11th of June. In Math AI, we'll cover AI-generated hints for math questions. In Authorade, we've got support for 2 more question types, match list and math, upgraded RAG capabilities for simpler content searching and higher quality items, custom presets at the subscription level, enhancements for bulk generation and management. In assessment, we'll talk about more flexible accent scoring options for close with text and short text questions. In STEM, we've got a new responsive keypad and more currency symbols for the math keypad. In grading, we'll introduce simplified feedback retrieval via the new data API endpoints. In Feedback Aid, we'll explore short response auto scoring with 4 new rubric types, the ability to add sources to support context-rich questions, more tailored AI-generated feedback with new model options, and extended language support. Let's start with Math AI. Use AI to auto-generate contextual hints based on the question, guiding learners through formative assessment and saving content creators time. Let's take a look at the demo. In our previous LTS, we released out-of-the-box hints for 3 math question types to support learners' formative assessment and ease the authoring process. Now we've taken it a step even further to support authors and save them time by using AI to generate hints. Simply enter in your math question and then click Math AI. You'll have the option to choose between 2 hint styles, either a problem overview and step-by-step instruction, or a step-by-step guided solution. In the problem overview and step-by-step instructions, 3 hints will be generated, with the first hint being the problem overview hint that will provide a summary of the problem, and then define any key terms or concepts within the question. The second will offer the first step necessary to begin solving the problem. Lastly, the third is a solution guidance hint that uses scaffolding to help solve the problem and provide a final answer. In the step-by-step guided solution, each hint is a step in solving the problem. You can use these options to fine-tune the level of guidance the hints provide. Once you generate the hints and accept them, they will auto-populate in the hint section, where you can then edit or customize it using the rich text editor if needed. Hints will appear below the question for the student, giving them that extra support. Let's see what's new in our Authorade releases. Authorade now supports 2 more questions, match lists and math. These new options enable authors to create even richer, more varied assessments. Let's take a look with Michael.
Using Authorade, you can now generate math question types. On the new home page, click the question type drop-down, select math, and you will get a familiar screen. In this instance, I'll just use 2 items. I could add source material by pasting it in or choosing a file. Like with our other question types, I can just use a general topic, or I could use something specific. I might want to do this if I wanted something like a scenario question type or a word-based problem. Next, I choose the math domain I want. You can see out of the box we have a lot of options to choose from. I'll choose derivatives for this example. In the last accordion, you'll see a few options if you're familiar with our math question types. I can choose the dot or comma decimal separator if that's relevant. With the thousand separator, I have options as well. And then with the number of responses, I can choose any number or set something specific. I'll then click Generate. Wait a short while and go into the review area. I'll see derivatives. Now I can review the items as normal. I have the correct answer in yellow, the question the student will see, and because this is using the math question type, each student gets the keypad to input their responses. Another new question type option that has just been released is Match List. Click the question type drop-down from the new homepage, select Match List. In this instance, I'll just choose 2 items again. As usual, I can enter any source material, including choose by file. The same options to use a general topic or use my own prompt. I'm going to choose cells and organisms. And in this instance, I'm going to match by definition. As you can see, I can use my own matching criteria if I want. If you look down in the last accordion there, you have some more flexibility. That in terms of the number of matches, I can do any number of matches, or I can select ranges. I can choose the exact number of response options. I'm going to default to more than the number of matches. And I can shuffle and choose whether the response options can be used more than once. I'll then click Generate, wait a short while, go into Review. I will see the 2 items that have been generated for cells and organisms. I can see here, because I didn't put a range on the number of responses, it's chosen 8 fields to do a definition for, and there are 10 possible responses.
Thanks, Michael. Our enhanced RAG experience now provides simpler content searching and enables you to generate higher quality, more accurate items. Got highly specific requirements for your content? Authorade can now customize your context to better support your specific use case and generate higher quality content specific to your industry. Contact your customer success manager to get started. Let's take a look with Michael.
In this release of Authorade, we have a new concept called a custom preset. Now, Authorade has been developed under the hood so it handles a wide variety of scenarios. This can be customers from multiple industries, multiple markets, from school, kindergarten to year 12, to tertiary education, to vocational, to corporate training and compliance. However, there still might be something that's very, very unique to your needs. This is where custom presets come in. In this example, what we've done is we've applied a custom preset that will generate all items in Portuguese. So if I, as usual, go in, I'll just choose multiple choice right now. I'll choose 5 items, and my topic is just going to be monetary policy. I'll click Generate. As usual, wait a short while, go into Review Items. I can see I've got 5 items that have been generated for monetary policy. And as I view them, I can see that the language is Portuguese. They've all been generated in Portuguese. Now, this custom preset could be used for different things. It could be used for a different structure or format or styles of questions that you've got. So reach out to your customer success manager if you're interested in setting up custom presets.
Thanks, Michael. Generating and managing questions in Authorade just got a lot smoother. Updates include a new homepage layout, easy pagination, tagging ability, and editing features for bulk created items. Let's hand it over to Michael for a demonstration.
Being able to tag items that you have generated with Authorade is a very, very important piece. How else can you classify and find items later on? If I go into Review Items, and I'll choose Cells and Organisms, which we did before. Now at the top of the screen, you'll see a tags area. I can apply the tags as I would normally do to items. I'll choose science, grade, and maybe difficulty. Now that I've selected my tags, any item that I add and save to my item bank will have those tags automatically applied. Now that I've added those tags, you can see I have a View button. What this allows me to do is review and make any edits to items that I've saved to my bank. This is another new feature we've just released. If I go to Settings, Tags, you can see here are the tags that I added before. And as I said, any changes you want to make in here will be saved directly to your item bank.
Thanks, Michael. Now let's talk about our assessment release. Teachers can now choose to ignore accents and close with text and short text questions, with the added flexibility to award partial credit, offering better support for language learners at every level. Let's take a look at the demo. For our close with text and short text question types, authors now have the option to ignore accents when validating responses using the accent sensitivity checkbox located in More Options. For example, if our question is asking what the Spanish word for coffee is, with the correct response of cafe with an accent over the E, if enabled, as long as the base word cafe is correct, then a student would receive full credit, 1 out of 1, meaning that an author no longer has to include all alternate versions of a correct response. For even more added flexibility, we've also added the ability for authors to award partial credit for any missing or incorrect accents. In this example, if Enable Accent Sensitivity is checked, an accent penalty points field will appear. If we were to write 0.5, so half credit, if a student were to submit an answer with any incorrect or missing accents, then they would only receive half credit, 0.5 out of 1. This gives teachers even more control over how they want to grade characters with accents. In our next section, STEM releases. Learners can now enjoy a more responsive typing experience for STEM questions. The redesigned keypad enhances usability, making the process of entering math or chemistry formulas even smoother. Let's take a look. After receiving many years of feedback from our customers, we're delighted to introduce a new responsive keypad for our STEM question types. Clicking into the response box, you can see that the keypad has a new, sleek, updated design with improved UI and keyboard interaction. It is also now resizable based on what you need for your screen. Similar to our previous keypad, you can customize the keys as needed and select any preferred symbol groups. You can navigate to the symbol group by clicking the top row rather than the drop-down. They are now also specified by title rather than icons. All keys also have a descriptor that shows on hover as a tooltip. If you have image capture enabled, it now shows as a separate tab rather than the previous camera icon in the top right corner. Overall, these improvements look to make the typing experience much more enjoyable for learners on any device. We've added 4 new currency symbols, euro, pound, rupee, and yen, to let learners engage with a wider range of real-world math problems. Next, I'll hand it over to Monet.
Thanks, Audrey. Now we're going to talk about our new grading release. A new Data API endpoint lets you store educator feedback alongside the session response and score, and then easily retrieve them to display to learners. This simplifies the integration of comments with or without the use of Grading API. Now let's talk about Feedback Aid. Our most exciting release for Feedback Aid is that it now auto-scores short response questions with 4 new rubric types. This allows you to mark responses that include things like multi-part answers, reasoning, organizing information, or naming multiple ideas. This allows educators to deliver richer, faster assessments without sacrificing rigor. Let's see it in action. Feedback Aid now supports numerous kinds of short response questions, and the list continues to grow. Let's take a look at the short response questions we offer. The first one is called General Short Response. This is for questions that require a short answer or explanation with a single correct answer. The student's response is evaluated based on whether it's correct or incorrect. You can see the rubric here has a single correct response, as well as an example of alternate responses. The incorrect responses are useful if there are answers that in certain scenarios may be acceptable or a different grader might accept, but are not acceptable in this particular use case. The next type of short response is called key points. This is for questions that require learners to give multiple main ideas or arguments in their response. The student's response is evaluated based on whether they have included all the key points and whether they have provided enough detail or explanation for each point. The score for this question type is usually binary, with a 1 or 0 for each point, but each point can be assigned a score. You can see here that calculating the break-even point was worth 2 points, and this learner, having gotten the first one right, received 1 out of 3. The next type of short response is X from Y. This is for questions where a learner must provide 1 or more correct answers from a list of longer correct answers. If we look at this question here, it's asking for 3 distinct factors that increase tension between Great Britain and its North American colonies. There are numerous valid points we can see illustrated on this side, but the learner was only required to demonstrate 3. If they demonstrated 4, they would still get a max of 3 points. The score for this question type is usually binary for each point, with 1 indicating that the student has included that point and provided enough detail, and 0 indicating that they haven't. The total is scored by counting the number of points given by the student which match the correct points. The rubric for this question type should include a list of the valid points that the student may have included in their response. For this example here, you see this learner identified 2 of 3 key points, giving them the mark 2 of 3. And of course, that's also reflected in their feedback down here. The feedback identifies the 2 factors that they got correct and gives suggestions for improvement. The fourth type of short response question is called categorize. This is for questions that evaluate the student's ability to categorize or classify information. The student is given a list of items and asked to categorize them into different groups or categories. The score for this question type is binary, 1 or 0 for each item, with 1 indicating that the student has correctly categorized the item and 0 indicating that they have not. Just like with feedback aid for essays, we always put the marking in the hands of the teacher or human grader. I can go in and I can say, I actually want to mark this as correct for the learner. And you can see the change in the UI there that indicates this is a human override. I can also add additional information in terms of comments. There are even more new features for feedback aid. This first one here is 2 new model options that let you align feedback aid with your learner's education level and grading strictness. These ensure essay scores match the expectations of your subject, audience, and use case. We also have a new sources feature, which allows you to enrich the essay stimulus with supporting text or images, giving learners more information to engage with. Feedback aid then uses this context via text or alt text to deliver more accurate scoring. And finally, we now support 10 different languages for essay grading, with a further 9 in preview. See a language you need? Get in touch and let us know. Now let's go to a demo to see all of these features in action. First, let's consider sources. Sources are passed to feedback aid in the initialization JSON, and they render on the grading page like this as a dropdown, so it can be hidden or it can be shown. In this question, the learner was asked to describe the obstacles the builders of the Empire State Building faced, supporting their answer with relevant and specific information from the mooring mast, the excerpt here. What the source allows feedback aid to do, as we can see in the comments written on the side here, is identify whether the comments and the points brought up by the learner are actually from the given text. And it allows for better specificity in both the grading and the feedback. For example, you can see for the suggestion number 3, it gives actual quotes from the text in its suggestions for how the learner could strengthen their response. Another example here is from College Board, their document-based question. This is used with attribution from the available online exams, and you can see here we have 4 sources, including 1 political cartoon that the learner is responding to, and providing these gives additional context to feedback aid to support those context-rich questions and to improve its feedback to learners. Next, let's talk about language. Feedback aid, again, supports those 10 languages. Here is an example in Portuguese. You can see the same UI, the question, the response, the rubric. The entire UI, including all of the buttons, have also been translated into Portuguese. This is great for internationalizations and learning in international settings. Another way to use feedback aid, however, is to split the language used. Here we see that the question and the response are all in French, but the rubric and the feedback are all in English. This is great for language learning, when a learner is learning French, for example. This way, they can fully understand the feedback that they're given. And you can see that, again, the UI here is in English. So you're able to mix and match to provide the best possible learning experience for your learner based on their language. And that concludes the overview of our second long-term support release of 2025. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Customers can log a ticket at help.learnosity.com. If you're not a customer, feel free to email us at team@learnosity.com. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you.